Hey guys, Cody here. Hey, wanted to talk about a few things that popped up recently. Had some questions about, well, a number of different questions that were really easy to answer, and like short answers. And so I wanted to go through a couple of them. One is what are the 1 year assignments in DS, overseas assignments in DS, and specifically, are there any Africa assignments? So the 1 year assignments that I know of are your Baghdad or your Iraq assignments. So you got Baghdad, you have Basra, you have Erbil in Iraq. Your Pakistan assignments, you have Islamabad. Islamabad actually might be two, but Peshawar is one, Lahore is one, and I believe there's another one under Pakistan. Kabul is a 1 year assignment. Kandahar is a one year assignment. Probably some other places I'm not as familiar with Afghanistan. But specifically to Africa, the one I know right now is Juba. Juba, I believe, is a 1 year assignment. It's really hard to fill that spot. I have a number of buddies that have gone in for 3 month TDYs to act as RSO, regional security officer out there. But I believe Juba is a 1 year assignment. And there's probably a couple others. Most Africa posts aren't, though. By far majority of them are your regular, 2 to 3 year assignments. The other one is MSD. Is MSD in field offices? And the answer is no. MSD is out of the DC area. They're in Dunloring. They share a space at the training center, at the not the training center in Blackstone, but the kind of like the headquarters of the training center in Dunloring, Virginia. That's kind of their office space. They train all over, train at Quantico, and during MSD Green training, they go to a number of places and get the training that they get. But no, they're not in field offices. They're based out of the right near the Washington field office. The WIFO office is actually based in Virginia, and they're based in like a building right next door. So they share a parking lot. So is ATA. You guys may have heard me talk about Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program, which DS has program managers in, and they all kind of share the same parking lot in an undisclosed location in Virginia. You can look it up and find out where they are. So those are two easy ones. I wanted to talk a little bit about USAID and the Peace Corps. So today, Assistant Secretary Evanoff, which is the highest level DS or highest level individual in charge of DS. So you have a director of Diplomatic Security Service, and then you have an assistant secretary. The assistant secretary reports to a deputy secretary, who reports to the Secretary of State. Mike Evanoff is a former DS agent, and a good dude, from what I understand. I've communicated with him on my book when I was trying to get it cleared through LinkedIn, of all places, and really good guy. And he served as a DS agent and was, has a good name in DS. So anyway, there was a MOA, a memorandum of agreement, that was signed. I believe it was today or yesterday. What's today? Monday. So it was today, and it basically discussed a couple items with regard to the Peace Corps and how DS can assist the Peace Corps in a lot of these foreign countries. And I'll tell you that, so the Peace Corps is a government agency that has mostly volunteers. So their administrators and their people kind of probably in charge are paid government officials, but they survive by volunteers. I don't know, there's no MOA before this or an MOU, but the Peace Corps comes into countries, into third world countries, and performs, you name it, helps dig wells, maybe helps build houses, assists NGOs and nonprofits and some governments, and they tend to live in kind of circumstances that are below with what we as diplomats, definitely what we as diplomats would live in. They live with the local populace oftentimes, and there was never an official agreement till now, from my understanding, that DS was responsible for their safety, or DS would assist in their safety and security or investigations, and there was none of that. Now, I'll say each RSO handles it differently. If there's a big Peace Corps presence, they might direct their ARSO to help out on something. Vietnam was looking at getting a Peace Corps, and I know that my boss, the RSO, was willing to chat, to have a talk and brief the Peace Corps security officer or agent kind of on, the lowdown of the country and the threats and things like that. So we do provide some assistance, but there was no official acknowledgement or partnership of us working with the Peace Corps. So, but Peace Corps personnel often utilize embassy facilities. They'll show up sometimes at Marine parties when Marines have parties. Unfortunately, they are often, some Peace Corps individuals are often the target of sexual assault, whether it be from locals or from other Peace Corps volunteers. And what that does is they end up in the American Citizen Services section, which is a consular section, an embassy and or consulate section, where people come for a number of things. If they want to get a passport renewed, if they need a notary, or if they've been a victim of a crime, or like sexual assault. And there are numerous experiences that Peace Corps have shown up to different diplomatic facilities and reported that. There's a number of other things that could happen to them. So I had a question. Someone asked earlier, is this a new thing? And I thought, well, it's going to be a lot more work, because you have ARSOs are already overworked. I don't know of many ARSOs, assistant regional security officers, that aren't. RSOs are overworked. Deputy RSOs are overworked. And so adding this, it's a pretty cool partnership, I guess. There could be some benefits to it, but I see it as more work. Granted, they are Americans and we want to help Americans. And if I were in that position, I'd say, yeah, roger that. I'd help out as best possible. But that's kind of the gist of the Peace Corps. I want to talk a little bit about USAID. USAID, it's the United States Agency for International Development. They are not, they're not a State Department entity, but they are a State Department entity because State Department controls their budget or has oversight of their budget. And they have an administrator, and that individual reports to the Secretary of State. Other than that, they're separate. They do fall on the Chief of Mission Authority, which means the Regional Security Office has a responsibility to keep them safe and to provide the same briefings, the security briefings when they arrive in country, and provide the same level of service that we would to a diplomat that works for the State Department. And it's not just USAID. There's Foreign Agricultural Service. There's USDA. There's Department of Justice. There's there's a number of different agencies that fall under Chief of Mission Authority, and USAID is one of them. USAID oftentimes has a significant presence depending on which country you're in, and they manage programs to help advance countries' development. And there's a number of ways they do that. They promote women and girls' rights in some of these countries. They promote education initiatives in some of these countries. And I'll give you a couple examples where I worked more closely with them in Erbil. They were often the ones that we took long trips to, the Syrian border, the Syrian refugee camps, or to the Iranian border to, IEP, internally displaced people camps. And they would go to visit these camps, and oftentimes they were visiting the nonprofits that worked in these camps. So I have a picture on my Instagram that shows I'm standing there with a flat Stanley for my nephew. In the background is a poster with all the different agencies or all the different nonprofits that work at the camp. And USAID will have a budget, and they'll maybe allot a certain amount of money to a program manager who was the individuals at our, working out of the embassy. And that program manager will allocate that money to different nonprofits that do different things. So think Save the Children, think of feedthehungry.org, if that's one of them. A number of different initiatives. And so those program managers would go out to kind of have some oversight in, hey, what are you spending the money on? If we're going to give you money, you need to produce, and you need to be active in your role. And so that's what they did. There was another individual. USAID has a pretty cool department that I don't think there's many of these guys in there, but there was a raid on Mount Sinjar during the ISIS push towards Mount Sinjar, where the Yazidis were running up to Mount Sinjar, and there was like a kind of a mass exodus of individuals, and as on the way up, ISIS slaughtered a lot of them. And U.S. Special Ops went up to the mountain. They had a Marine QRF that was circling above, and they went to provide some assistance up there to those that made it to the top of the mountain and provide some security. And one of the USAID guys, old school dude, had been around a while. He actually flew. The USAID guy flew with U.S. Special Operations Forces and went on that mountain. Got off the plane, the bird, the helo, and went on the mountain. I thought that was pretty cool. Actually got his coin, which he was a cool dude. But so they do a number of different things, but it's pretty cool. There's jobs out there like that. That's about it. I didn't have much. I had those 2 short questions. I did get a question about how to best prepare for DS. I answered something similar about the physical requirements. I think in my next video I will talk about a little bit on how to be good at your job. Not necessarily how to pass BSAC, because you're gonna freaking pass. But how to, what you need to do to be good at your job, to not only be respected, but to do your job, particularly when it comes to protection and all of them, but protection in particular. So maybe I'll talk about that, because that'll be kind of a longer video in itself. I had my first recording of the podcast I've been talking about last night. So it's called Off the X Podcast. I hope to be finished editing it later this week. I talked to a guy named John. John is a former DS special agent, spent 13 years in. He was with MSD. He has a lot of intel on MSD. He's out of New York field office. He talks about that a little bit. He was in Islamabad, Pakistan, when the Marriott bombing happened, which a bunch of Americans were killed, and he responded to that bombing. He was 2 days in country. He responded to that bombing. He also protected Ambassador Chris Stevens approximately a year before the attack on Benghazi, on the compound there, and he has a little bit of insight of how the compound was set up. And we kind of just grazed the surface, because we were limited on time. We had about an hour. But if people enjoy the podcast, I'll have them back on and I can dig a little deeper. I will say it's my first podcast. I hope I asked the right questions. I'll get better. We had some technology issues, so we used one of these newer technologies that everybody's using, and there's a little bit of an echo on his end. But it's so we'll work past that. He and I couldn't there's another one I want to use called Zencaster. It's really clear, but for whatever reason we couldn't get it up to work. And so this other one is good. I mean, you'll hear the information. It's clear. It's got a little echo to it. But if you are an aspiring DS agent, it's very informative. And so if you're looking at not necessarily if you're not an audio snob about how good it is, then you're looking for content and information, then this is a great freaking podcast. He talks about a lot of good information. So he's one of many former DS agents I plan on interviewing. It's been rough last couple weeks trying to get this done. Finally, we got together, we connected. We talked for about an hour 15. And so I think it'll be good. It's called Off the X Podcast. I'm going to put it on my website. My website's codyperron.com. I will let everyone know when it's on. You can follow. I'm most active on my Instagram, agentsunknown_book. And so I'll advertise there, and probably Twitter and Facebook. So, check it out. The book is doing well. Still selling copies. Having some great reviews. I'm really impressed with, or I guess say thankful that the book has served in helping some individuals pass the Bex panel. And they wrote that on their reviews. And I don't know these guys. Besides sometimes people ping me and say, hey man, I read your book and this is what happened. And I say, hey man, would you mind writing me a review? So I think it's been helpful. And I hope that one of the reasons it is because I kind of go through my thought process on why I made decisions and how decisions were made. And, it's an easy read, man. I gave a book to a security guard at my company, and he read it in one night. And granted, he's he probably reads really fast, and I write like a Cajun. So it doesn't take much to read my book and enjoy it. But But anyway, just put it out there. You can find everything on CodyParron.com. I have a few blogs up. I've been slacking on those. I need to get back to it. But anyway, all right, I'm starting to ramble now. So appreciate your time and all the support. And, don't be shy. Ask questions. Ask questions on Instagram. Hit me up at, on my website or, on YouTube, wherever. Just hit me up and I'll answer your questions. All right. Thanks, y'all. Out.